Please welcome back All In Together co-founder, Etta Collins-Coleman.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here and see you all again. The last few years have seen a reckoning on racial justice in America. From George Floyd and Breonna Taylor to the Supreme Court, our country is grappling with complex questions about how to ensure equal justice for all. As you will hear today from our amazing panel, true justice goes beyond criminal justice. It includes economic justice, gender justice, and so much more. No one understands the issues and opportunities for reform better than the women we are about to hear from. Many of you know lawyer and civil rights activist Maya Wiley from MSNBC, or perhaps her compelling campaign for mayor of New York City. She is now the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, a coalition of over 200 organizations that works tirelessly to promote and protect the human and civil rights of people in the U.S. Fatima Goss is the president and CEO of the National Women's Law Center and co-founder of the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. When she's not on TV providing expert legal commentary, she's often testifying in front of Congress and federal agencies on issues central to the lives of women in the ongoing fight for gender justice. Rachel Adams is one of the highest-ranking Black female corporate lawyers in the U.S., having held executive legal positions in the world's largest companies. Currently, Rachel is the senior vice president at T-Mobile, where she leads teams on litigation, leveraging her extensive background in compliance, corporate governance, and global government affairs. Moderating the discussion is Alanah Odoms, executive director of the ACLU of Louisiana, and the first Black woman to lead the organization in its history. Please join me in welcoming these amazing women.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. You are all in for a treat. These dynamic women are trailblazers, all attorneys, civil rights leaders, executives leading in the field of corporate litigation, and we are going to get some nuggets of wisdom, so get your pads and your pens out and get ready to learn some stuff here. From Brown versus Board of Education in 1963 to the March on Washington, the Freedom Rides to the Birmingham Campaign for Equal Rights, women were critical to every aspect of the fight to end legal segregation in the United States and also the right to vote. We actually have a really interesting common fact between all of these amazing women on this panel. Each of their families, parents, had a significant role to play in the civil rights movement. I would love if we had an opportunity to hear from each of you about that origin story and how it has informed your work in this amazing space. And we'll start with Fatima.
I didn't know that, so I can't wait to hear all the stories.
It's really neat.
So, well, both of my parents were plaintiffs. Their families were plaintiffs in school desegregation cases. And my father and his siblings were the named plaintiffs in Goss versus Board of Education in Knoxville, Tennessee. And then my mother's family, the same in Detroit. So it's an interesting thing. So I grew up understanding the law and justice work from the stories of my family and really the hero work, less so of the lawyers, but of the people who are showing up again and again. So I always kind of wanted to be a lawyer and help in that way, and I became the first lawyer in my family because of it, because of those stories.
Wow. Maya?
Well, my story is exactly the opposite. In that my parents were both active in the civil rights movement and at the forefront of the economic justice movement in the late 60s. My father organized Black women on welfare because he saw Black women as the key. He was an intersectionalist before that was a word.
Yes.
And my mom actually left the organizing to support the family so that he could organize black women. So she became the breadwinner. So that was, but I say my origin story about becoming a civil rights lawyer is the opposite, because in my family, folks were hard organizers. And the worst thing you could be was a lawyer. In fact, there were buttons. No, I'm not joking, y'all. There were buttons that folks wore saying, "I am not a lawyer." It was a button.
Wow.
And the reason it was a button was because
they wanted to take it off.
Well, lawyers were the ones telling folks what not to do.
Exactly.
And the whole point of the organizing was to challenge and therefore break the law.
That's right.
And so it was actually antithetical to the strategy. I don't mean all lawyers were like this, obviously.
We felt like we had good lawyers.
No, there was, I see myself and went to law school to walk in the very large footsteps of a Thurgood Marshall. But the point was, I had to overcome the bias against being a lawyer. Because I saw myself as wanting to work in the movement and not wanting to undermine the power building and the activist challenge that movement is. But my parents and my mother was very encouraging in saying, you can do it. You know, there is a way to do it. You be the person who knows what it's like to be challenging power and to understand that sometimes that means breaking the law. And that's the story.
And making good trouble, which is what all these ladies have been doing. Exactly. Rachel.
So my story is a little similar to yours as well. My parents were deep in the civil rights movement. I was fortunate enough to have my mom up until she passed away earlier this year at the great age of 93. So she lived a life that could shine a light to me and to my family on what it was really like. My father was a minister, a Baptist minister. I was a preacher's kid. We could take this one off camera to talk about. Hey? Okay. But I grew up with a mother and father that were real about the struggles. They sat in Woolworths. I'm sure a lot of you know that, the sit-ins. My dad marched with Martin Luther King and others. So I grew up realizing that this is real. The struggle continues, and my parents ingrained it in me. I wanted to go to law school to help fix the problems, but I also wanted to go to law school to get educated so that I could be an activist and a leader and help people realize that this fight is not over. It's not over now. As we all know, social justice issues are out there.
Absolutely. And let's talk about some of those social justice issues. We are seeing attacks on voting rights, women's reproductive liberty and access to health care under attack at this very moment. We could even receive a decision as soon as potentially today, this month, from the Supreme Court. Hate and violence, racial terror, killings going on. In many ways, some folks say that we are experiencing a civil rights movement of today. And so what I want to ask you each about is that many of you are firsts in your role, and Black women often do have that title of being first. What are you doing to ensure that you are not the last? And Rachel, I'm going to start that question with you, because I know the corporate space can be particularly a difficult space to navigate in terms of pipeline and preparing people, Black women for leadership in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say this, as a Black woman in corporate America, you have to lead. You're usually the only Black woman at the table, right? Not just as a Black woman, but even as a woman in a lot of instances. We have to be well prepared. We have to always show up 120%. Now, I'm at T-Mobile. Our company has made significant commitments, not just in the communities and in the front lines, but we are preaching it and living it from the top level down. I think I'm a perfect example of that. But to answer your question, what am I doing to bring others along? I have to intentionally go out and meet people. I've got to intentionally sit down and have the conversations. How are you doing? Especially now, you don't know what you're going to get when you have these conversations now, but how are you doing? What can I do to help you? Moms, Black women with babies, kids, teenagers, we all have to support each other. We've got to ask them how they're doing because we all know we've got more than one job. We have to show up no matter what happens at home. And you've got to put that face on. You've got to be strong, but you've got to be your authentic self. So what am I doing? I'm trying to open the door more, to kick the door open. I'm trying to make sure that when we have applicants, I see people from different schools, from all across the spectrum. That's who we are, and that's how we're going to deliver the best to clients and customers, is if we are representative of who the people are that are buying our services and that are utilizing our product. So you have to be intentional and you have to be purposeful.
Absolutely. Maya?
Well, first I want to say, do I have my women here from the Leadership Conference? Where are you? Stand up. Stand up, y'all. Okay, you don't have to stand, but
Let's give them a round of applause.
Well, I just want to appreciate All In Together for actually offering us some tickets to this event. And the first thing we did is say, where are young black women in the organization that we can give the opportunity to be here?
Yes.
And I do think that's a big part of purposeful and intentional, is making sure that from our vantage points, we're actually thinking about and offering the opportunities that don't just get offered to black women. Right? And so it's incumbent upon us when we're in these positions to be able to think that forward. I will say I'm very proud because I may be the first black woman who is leading the leadership conference as president and CEO. I have a senior management team that has other black women on it. Our senior management team has 3 black women on it.
Amazing.
Right? So it's not as if I feel, in some respects, I don't feel like a first in the sense of what leadership is and has been. Fatima is a leader who has actually extended her hand to me, because the one thing I do say to all of the folks I get the opportunity to mentor, because I do think we do that unofficial, right? It's both opening the door, but it's also recognizing that we have a role to play in helping to engage and support our leadership that's coming up. And that's to recognize, and the thing I say to all of them, I have never had a day in my life I didn't need help.
That's right.
I know that's right.
Asked for it.
Never had a day in my life I didn't need help, and I haven't had a day in my life a black woman didn't help me.
Yep.
Yes.
And here's one right here.
Oh, wow. Yes, Fatima.
You know, it is hard to do this work in this time. And so it'll be 5 years since I became the head of the National Women's Law Center this summer. And at that time, I would go into coalition spaces, whether it was the reproductive rights, health, and justice space, or the broader civil rights tables or women's community tables. There weren't very many black women leading whatever space I was in, there weren't very many of us. There has been a giant shift these last couple of years, and it's not lost on me that this is one of the hardest times to lead, and black women are leading. And so to Maya's last point around how it is we connect with each other and support each other, I stay in sort of a yes stance when black women ask, and I ask because I think that that in this time, whether people are naming it or not, we need each other and we need each other's support. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, again, about this time, oftentimes black women come into organizations and the pressure to make dramatic change at a pace that you can't believe is really high. And again, I see black women meeting those really high demands. It's like, transform your leadership team overnight. Okay,
got it.
Grow your budget, and also while you grow your budget, become dramatically diverse overnight. Okay, so that. And so what I want to say is there are models for doing that, but we also have to figure out how we don't pretend that black women have magic wands.
Exactly.
You know, that we have to be real about that.
There's black girl magic, but then there's also called black woman work. And that's what you're talking about, Fatima. Right? Exactly. And just so that I can lift up a few of the Black women in this space who have mentored and nurtured me, Dr. Drea Creer-Perry from Louisiana, thank you so much. Tanya, are you in the room still? I'm not sure if she's still here. There are so many people who have helped me, and indeed, I have needed help, and I have offered help, and I think, that's one of the keys to what we need to do. And I'm so glad for us to have the opportunity to talk about deep relationship in a space like this, because we all come dressed beautifully with faces that are beat, look lovely. But at the core of this, honestly, what we really need to be able to do is we need to be able to pick up the phone, and we need to be able to reach out to one another, to be uplifted, not just in the times where we're doubling the budget and we're doing phenomenally in the press and the news, but when things actually go wrong and things are hard and when we fall on hard times. And there are women in this room who've done that for me, and so I just want to say thank you for that.
Can I add a point?
Rachel, please do, please.
I think the sisterhood is strong, and I think we have to continue to recognize it. I think reaching out and being intentional is how we all move forward. And we're all going to make mistakes, but who doesn't, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I want to ask this question of Fatima. I heard you on a podcast recently, and I was so excited listening because I was fangirling, like, I'm going to get a chance to meet her in real life. But you were sharing some really startling statistics around economic justice for Black women. And you said something really powerful. You said that we will not be fully recovered as a country until Black women and women of color are fully recovered. Take us into that a bit more.
Yeah, I want to just paint a little bit of a picture of what COVID has been like for Black women. And I know we know these stories for ourselves and our families, but you might think it's just your story, and it's not. So, from the beginning of the pandemic, Black women were disproportionately frontline workers. And so we had this image in our heads of women working remotely, but 1 in 3 Black women never stopped being on the front lines. Right. Black women were also disproportionately in the category of jobs that just shut down and laid people off with no notice. And they came into that not with huge savings, right? And so, we recently, you may have seen statistics out there about how women have a lower share of the workforce and how they're leaving the workforce. Yes. And that is true. The thing that has been harder to get reporters to understand is that those numbers are mostly made up of Black and Latino women. And actually, there have been some months where the entire job losses were Black and Latino women. So where there were gains for the country overall, and Black and Latino women were leaving the workforce and not looking for work. And a big part of that is care infrastructure. A big part of that is that if you're working frontline and schools shut down and daycares closed, or you don't have care, or you no longer can afford it because childcare has increased so dramatically, there isn't an additional step to take. They were like, we're just leaving work. And so we recently tried to figure out, like, where did everybody go? Because there's still hundreds of thousands. There's almost 700,000 women who have not returned. And so we were like, are you coming back? Where'd you go? And the answer is people aren't sure how to come back. And so the report we put out is called Resilient but Not Recovered, because people are trying, they have been holding on, putting together stuff with tape and everything else, and it broke and it's not yet back together. And so for Black women, it is a combination of the jobs we've long been in, the low wages in those jobs, and the total lack of care infrastructure that we have not fixed to make right for our families in this country.
Wow. When you share those kinds of statistics, it feels like we need not only policy change, legislative change, but we also need organizing, right? Maya's been talking about this so much Go ahead, Fatima.
Yeah, if I could just name, I think about this last year and how a lot of times in our history, parents have struggled to organize around childcare because the people who need it the most, they're like, I don't have time to organize around childcare. I'm trying to figure out how to get my child childcare.
That's right.
So what was different in these last couple of years, when everything broke, people started organizing as parents and as child care workers together. And a kind of understanding that we actually are seeking a common agenda.
Exactly. This conversation is so interesting, and I want to make sure that we touch on this really important issue of reproductive liberty before we end today, because it would just be a injustice to this audience if we didn't talk about this. Maya, from the Leadership Council's perspective, you work on a really important angle in terms of advocating for fair-minded judges and justices that have the ability to think and uphold civil rights and social justice based on their work experience, the ways in which they think about coming into the work. This decision is going to be the rolling back of a right that we've had for 50 years is going to be decided by 9 appointed justices. Talk
with
about
some stolen seats.
With some stolen seats, right? So,
they stole some stuff, y'all.
Yeah, but isn't that what this is really? A lot of stuff is stolen, really, honestly.
Yeah.
Right? That's the part of this that is, really underlies this whole conversation. But the federal judiciary, how important is the advocacy of a powerhouse like the Leadership Conference in terms of advocating for fair judges? And what kind of experiences should fair judges have? And how does that weigh in on a decision like civil rights for voting, reproductive liberty, police accountability, all the things that we know are the major civil rights issues of our day?
Whew. Well, I actually want to tie this question, really important question, so thank you for asking it, but tie it directly into what Fatima just said. Because first of all, nobody lives a single issue life.
That's right.
Not a soul.
Except the NRA. I'm sorry.
She trying to test me, y'all, because I'm like...
And I work for the ACLU.
Cameras rolling. Okay. And one of the issues that we have always had, one is because everything Fatima just said about the condition of black women because of COVID, frankly, before COVID and after, as we're pulling out of COVID, has actually been our reality for a very long time, and it's not one issue. Mm-hmm. You're not allowed to have children, but if you have children, we're not going to help you take care of them, and then we're going to blame you for having them. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to take away the health care that gave you the ability to make a choice about whether you had them at all, and by the way, now we're going to come next for your contraception. And we are going to do it by making it harder for you to vote, make sure it's harder for you to participate civically, and then we're going to make sure we have an ideological court that actually is outside the mainstream of America.
Yes.
And we'll do that by breaking the rules.
Yes.
That we'd put you under the jail if you broke.
Correct.
I'm just saying, that's the way it is, right?
Just saying. I told you they would tell it like it is.
Well, Fatima, this is why it's what's important about the Leadership Conference and understand to answer that question is that we've got Fatima.
Yes.
Like the Leadership Conference is not my Wiley, it's not the staff. Not that the staff are not phenomenal and we need the staff to drive it, but it's because we're 230 organizations. It's because what our staff does in our fair courts is we have two things. We have advanced planning on when and how vacancies are going to happen. We have field organizing engagement through our partnerships, through our coalition, because we have folks doing the work and present in people's lives in all the ways that people are living them, and in the communities we have to focus on. We have outreach, and I'm sorry, I'm ringing, and it might be.
She's important, y'all. Very important.
And so it's our ability to both have relationships that are expansive, that are deep into people's experiences, and that can plan in advance so that we actually go into organizing mode in advance of a vacancy, but also in ways that are representative of what people are struggling with every day. So I want to bring it back to, and I'm pointing at Fatima because the leadership conference is powerful because the leadership conference has people and organizations that are powerful that are part of it, right? Yes. And so when abortion, so Fatima's a group of the leaders who are saying, here's what we got to do. Here's how it maps to courts. The economic justice work we're doing, which, by the way, is about can women get health care? Mm-hmm. Can women get child care? We have ways we're working on that, but when we're coming back to the fair courts, it's also, and issues like abortion, which, by the way, is not just abortion, it's really a coming for fundamental rights and freedoms. Because it's not only coming for abortion, although that's critical to fight for. But the fair courts work actually becomes a lens and an activism tool, an engagement tool, a public education tool, and a rapid response tool. And Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination was a perfect example.
Perfect. Queen Ketanji, please, let's all just give her some snaps up, please.
It's about being at the table. It's about having representation at the table. I read a fact this morning. 1967, today, was Thurgood Marshall's nomination. 54 years ago. And now we're just seeing the first black female justice.
And racial segregation in schools is more prevalent now.
Trying to point out being at the table is incredibly critical.
So I agree completely, and it's such an important point. It does go back to the qualification. One of the reasons is Ketanji Brown Jackson, a black woman. Yes. Is that important? Yes. Does it mean there's a voice and a set of experiences we need represented on the courts? Yes. She's also a criminal defense attorney.
She sure is.
She's someone who came with the Sentencing Commission background. She's someone who comes with the lens, and I think as we saw, they tried to attack her for who she was as opposed to what she was qualified to do. Right. But part of what, because it's like that we need a seat at the table, but we have to build a table to get folks a seat at the table. And that's actually what coalition means, represents. Mm-hmm. And it's also what black women's leadership has always been, is building the table.
Sometimes the right leader is there at the right time. And I have to say, Maya Wiley has stepped into this leadership conference role at the exact right time, including it was her first day on the job when the draft leaked opinion came out.
Oh my
so
gosh.
I'm, on the phone with her at maybe midnight about that plan. And if I could just say to this room, many of you may be refreshing your phones trying to figure out if there's a decision every Monday, and then as they add Wednesdays and Thursday decision days, it is going to be hard. It is going to be hard in particular for black women in this country. And, over the short run, our greatest and highest thing we can do is to try to protect people, try to work alongside the infrastructure that's in place to get people the care that they want and need. And in the end, we have to see ourselves as at the very, very beginning of a totally new fight to ensure that people get the care they want and that they need, that our rights and our access are enshrined, and that won't happen accidentally. It's not going to rain from the sky. I'm going to wake up and say, oh, phew, it's all done. It is going to take all of us with unrelenting demands that we deserve better for ourselves, for our families, and for our future in this country. And I see so many of you who I work alongside in this work, and Joya and Michelle and Joy and so many, and I know you know this deeply. We need to tell and remind everyone that we got to both do this short-term protection, but we are about to embark on a long fight together, and we can do this. We have been in long fights before.
Yes, we
have.
We
can do this.
Yes, we have. Well, my word. If that's not a call to action, I don't know what is. And I really do think a large part of this is public-private partnership. So there's a lot of work that corporations and firms can do to provide the legal infrastructure that's going to be needed to stand up the fight that's going to take probably the next 50 years for us to secure the rights and liberties that are so enshrined in our Constitution and founding documents. We need to make real what's on paper, and that is what we intend to do. One of my, the heroine of my life, Dr. Dorothy Heights, said that she wanted to use herself and everything that she touched in service of justice and freedom, and I think that's what these women are doing on this panel, so thank you all so much. We'll see you soon.